A quick heads up. This episode includes discussions of sexual violence, child abuse, and detailed accounts of FGM, female genital mutilation, which some may find distressing. Hello and welcome to Doing Sex. I'm Sahar, a journalist and documentary maker on a quest to understand the world through the lens of how people do sex.
There is no amount of money that can bring back my clitoris. There is no amount of money that can bring that back to me. So when people say, oh, you've been paid by the West to do this kind of work, they don't understand. FGM is a lifelong trauma. Like you live through the pain for the rest of your life.
Today's guest is Fatou Badjie, a UK-based Gambian activist and campaigner against gender-based violence. Fatou is also an FGM survivor. The details of her story are ones we don't often hear, and her honesty, her courage, her generosity in sharing the most intimate details of her life left us in no doubt that this conversation needs space. That's why we're telling her story in two parts. And while her story is heavy, at times heart-wrenching, with experiences that most of us can barely imagine, it's also one of resilience, of breaking the silence of trauma and abuse, of reclaiming her body, and of finding power through sexual autonomy. Fatou Badjie, welcome to Doing Sex.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
It's been a few weeks since you and I first met at a conference organized by the Oxford-based NGO called Sundial, which was exploring the themes of shame and honor-based abuse. And I remember being immediately struck by your openness after I heard just a part of your story. And what you're about to share with us is rare. It's deeply, deeply personal and incredibly complex on so many levels. Why have you decided to speak out and share your story with the world?
I want to speak out because I want to help other women. I know there are women like me who are suffering in silence. And I believe that every woman deserves to be happy. Every woman deserves to enjoy sex, have pleasure when they have sex. And I feel that there is a lot of misconception around sexuality and what sex looks like when you have FGM done. So it's really to educate people, but also to be the voice for those who are still trying, those women who are still trying to find their own voices and to be bold and go out and seek support.
Fatou, I have tons I want to speak to you about. But before we get started, let's play a little game, if you would.
Okay.
Basically, we do this thing mostly to help us warm up, but also to kind of help our audiences get to know you a little bit more. The rule is I'm going to ask you a bunch of quick-fire questions, and all you have to do is to give me the fastest and quickest answer that comes to your head. There is no right or wrong answer. It's just to get a better understanding of you.
Okay, let's go for it.
Does that sound good?
Yeah.
English or mother tongue?
Mother tongue.
Telling a story or listening to one?
Both.
What does your name mean to you?
Firstborn in my country.
Learning or unlearning?
Learning.
What's harder? Breaking the silence or being heard?
I think breaking the silence.
Food or sex?
Both.
You have to pick one. If you had to pick one, which one would you go for?
I'll go for food. I need the strength.
I agree. Also, I'm hungry right now. It could be, my answer could be driven by that desire at the moment. One thing you wish everyone understood about FGM?
that every story is different. Every survivor's story is different, and it is not a survivor's fault to go through FGM. It is something that they don't consent to.
What's the one thing you think every girl should be taught about sex?
Every girl should be taught that they have a right to pleasure, that they are not made to please the person that they're having sex with. They have right over their body.
Which is harder to change, law or culture?
Culture. It is deeply embedded.
What's the bravest thing you've ever done?
To talk about my own experience of FGM in a big space, in a public space. I am vulnerable at that time, and usually I'm seen as this tough lady, strong activist in my community. And for the first time I spoke about it, it broke me down.
How long have you been speaking about your experiences for?
Online for 10 years. 2015 was the first time I spoke about it on social media.
Do you still find it hard?
It is still difficult. It's not an easy conversation, but it's got to be done.
My last question. What are the top 3 most common myths you keep hearing about FGM?
The first one is that people believe that if you're not caught, if you don't have FGM, you are promiscuous, which is false. It's not true. It is also believed that when you have FGM done, you don't enjoy sex. Again, false, because certainly for me, I do enjoy sex, and I'm a survivor of FGM. And the third one is that people tend to think that FGM and male circumcision is the same, and it isn't, because what they're taking off from a woman or a girl is an organ, and what is taken away from a boy is the tip of the excess skin, basically. So it's not the same.
What are your views about male circumcision?
Male circumcision is different from female circumcision. Because I'm a Muslim, we do perform male circumcision for religious reasons. But FGM, there's no religious reason for FGM, even though that is what is being sold. That is what a lot of people believe. But for a male circumcision, even if we put religion on one side, it is believed that it cleans the male's the organ. And it's not the whole organ that is removed. Like I said, for us, it's a clitoris. A clitoris is the only organ that is placed in a woman for pleasure. That is the one that is created there. That's its sole purpose. It's just to have fun and enjoy. Whereas if we have to compare FGM and male circumcision, we would have to remove the whole penis, basically, to be able to compare it. I don't think anyone should go through pain. Any child should go through pain. But because I'm a Muslim, we do male circumcision, for religious cleanliness, but also for health purposes as well. Because when you leave the skin there, it can trap dirt and it can cause infections and things like that. That's what has been proven scientifically. But for female genital mutilation, it does the opposite.
I'm really glad I asked you about that, because I think sometimes when you use the same term, circumcision, when the context, when the reality is so different, I think it can be massively misleading. And I'm really glad that we got this out of the way this early in the program.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Fatou, I think it's safe to say that we're both now warmed up. But before we get started, I just wanted to point out that if at any point throughout our conversation today, you need a moment, you feel uncomfortable for whatever reason, you're not happy with any of my questions, or if I say anything or do anything that makes you in any way feel less than comfortable, please let me know.
Okay, thank you.
Fatou, what is an FGM?
So FGM is an alteration to the female genitalia for non-medical reasons. You have the type 1, which is the cutting of the clitoris or the clitoral hood. That is removed. Sometimes it is removed completely. Sometimes just a little bit is taken out, depending on the culture or community that you're from. And type 2 is taking off the clitoris and also the inner lips. So as a female anatomy, we have the the genitalia of a female. You have the inner lips and then you have the outer lips. So type 2 would take away the clitoris, but also take some bits of the inner labia as well. So we call it labia minora. And then we have the type 3, which again in some cultures take away the clitoris, the inner lips, and then stitch together the outer lips, which is the labia majora. Some cultures leave the clitoris intact without touching it, stitching together the outer lips and leaving a small hole for a girl to be able to wee. And in which case, in many cases of that, when you get married, you then need to go back again and do what we call de-infibulation to remove that stitching before any penetration can occur. And then the final type is type 4, which the WHO refer to as any sort of alteration that is done on the female genitalia for non-medical reasons. So you have communities that would scrape or do piercing or stretching. Any sort of deformation that is done there for non-medical reason is classed as type 4. And FGM is usually done to girls that haven't reached the age of consent, young girls, so they don't normally consent. And it's usually decided by the older female members of the family, so the aunties, the grandmas, and the mothers in the family. And I want to also say that it is a global issue. It is not just concentrated in one area, because again, this is a misconception that it happens in somewhere in Africa. Because of migration, because people move around, FGM is now happening across many, many different continents across the world.
Why is FGM carried out? What is the justification behind it?
I mean, there are different reasons why a girl would be exposed to FGM. Most of it is the misconception, is based on ignorance as well. You would hear communities would say, we are doing FGM because we want the girl not to be promiscuous, as we started, because they believe that when you're not caught, your sex drive is high, which we know is not true. We know that even if you have FGM, you can still enjoy sex and go and have sex and want to have sex as well. Some communities would say to you that they do it to preserve the honor of the family, because virginity in some cultures is very important. So to preserve that virginity, girls are exposed to this practice. Some communities also would say it is done out of love, because they don't want their girls to be isolated in the communities that they grow up from. Because in the FGM practicing communities, we can say between 70 to 90% of girls in those communities would have gone through FGM. And if you are one person who did not go through it, you become like an outcast. You are stigmatized, you're called names, you're called dirty, for example, in my community. And sometimes, there are certain things that you play, games that your teenage friends would be doing, you would not be included in it because you haven't gone through FGM. So to stop their girls from being excluded or isolated, they might expose them to this lifelong trauma, FGM. Some communities also do it because they want the girl to be marriageable, because in certain communities, when you are circumcised, when you go through FGM, your bride price is higher. Your family could ask for a bit more because you are young and you haven't been touched. Some men call them the untouched woman or the untouched girl. So that warrants a higher bride price. So there are various different reasons, and some just do it because it has been passed on. It's a practice that has been passed on from generations, and they don't know any better. In those days, we don't talk about sexuality. In fact, it is a taboo to talk about FGM. Talk less of knowing the harms that are associated with it. So our great-grandparents didn't know any better. They didn't do much research. And even until now, there's not been, we are progressing, but there's still so much awareness that needs to be raised. So I would say also ignorance played a very big role, and it's one of the reasons that it is done.
It's so uncomfortable to hear from what you're saying how girls' sexuality, women's bodies are almost like a commodity to be exchanged, and the price seems to be all about what's happening down there, whether she's touched, whether she's untouched, the price, the dowry she would expect from the husband's family, and, you know, even the honor of the family, which is a whole complex thing.
And I want to add, Sahar, interestingly, the same expectation is not there for the man or the partner. So no one talks about a man being a virgin. In fact, what we celebrate is a man having numerous sex and being experienced man before they even get married. You know, and we as women, sometimes we empower that misconception and we kind of praise that, because you would hear women say, you want an experienced man, someone he knows how to have sex. Then, you know, a man who knows how to have sex before sex is not a virgin, but there's no problem with that. But if I, for example, I'm not a virgin and I'm going to, you know, getting married, that is a problem. I could be ostracized in my community for not being a virgin, but the same is not true. So there is a big double standard as well.
Why? Why do you think that is? Why do you think there is so much value on a woman's virginity or purity? You know, and I'm doing quotation marks because, you know, what even is purity and when and how did virginity or your hymen become a signifier of that?
Yeah.
Why is that the case, do you think?
I think it's just misogyny. I think it's been passed down generations. It's just a concept. Women are conditioned to behave in certain ways, or there are expectations like gender norms, you know, that society hold up to. And also I think it's partly about inequality as well, and how women are perceived. Women are perceived as inferior. We are perceived as objects. And that is what boils my skin. That's what really makes me sad and angry at the same time, because we're all humans. So I think women are not valued for so long. And that is because men held the narrative for so long as well. And there's so much ignorance.
And also abuse is abuse. Just because it was done once, why is it okay for it to continue?
Yeah, that's right.
When you know something is not right, you've got to stop it, no matter how long it went on for. Fatou, you come from the Gambia. What is FGM called there? What is the term used for it?
In the Gambia, we call it, in English, people would say circumcision. In fact, there was a big debate around the language used to describe the practice. And some of the advocates of FGM said, oh, we don't have FGM here. We have circumcision. And for me, that's like minimizing the harm. Because mutilation, when you look at the word mutilation, is about deforming, changing. So there was a debate around the language that is used to describe the practice, and advocates were minimizing it and calling it circumcision when we know it's mutilation because there is alteration and change to the organ, you know. So in Gambia, they describe it as circumcision, which again in the local language is nyaka or sunna. Nyaka is in Mandinka circumcision because we speak different languages. And for example, the Mandinka community, they believe in the FGM quite a lot. And certain other ethnic groups as well, like the Jola, which I am also. Sunna, it's used across other countries as well. Nyaka, it just means circumcision, basically. And sometimes it could mean cleanliness as well. Sunnah is an Arabic term. Sunnah is the doings and the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So it's like the doings and the teachings of the Prophet. But in this case, it's actually used to mean cleanliness.
In the knowledge that these words mean things and they can change the context, the fact that a lot of people are calling it Sunnah, both in the Gambia and elsewhere, as you said, it means that they're actually referring it back to a practice of Islam, something that was passed down from Prophet Muhammad. Do you think What are your views around this? Do you think FGM comes from Islam?
It doesn't.
Do you think it's a part of
It
Islam?
doesn't. It's not part of Islam. From our research, we know that FGM predates Islam. It was practiced even before Islam came into existence. It doesn't make you a Muslim. And we have Muslim countries that don't perform FGM. And you have other religious countries like Christian communities that practice FGM. So it's a false narrative that's being spread out, that's been spread to manipulate us. Because, Sahar, with religion, it's been translated, like the main books in religion, not only Islam, but in the main books have been translated by men to favor them. So many different things, so many different things are in religious books that don't mean what the interpretations say. So the question around religion and FGM is very deep because they pick hadiths. So hadiths are the write-ups that these scholars made. So they are the sunnahs of the Prophet is collected in books of hadiths. So they pick up hadiths
to interpret the word of Quran or the alleged word of Prophet.
Yes. So they pick bits there that mean completely different things, or that was said in a context that's completely different. For example, when they say, when the Prophet came and found a lady doing it, he said to her, if you must do it, take a little bit off. So they are saying that because the Prophet did not say don't do it, so it's okay to do it. But my understanding is that if it was permissible, if he did not see harm, he wouldn't even have said, if you must do it. And the word if is very important because that's an option then. And then I argue that because we have the option to do it or not to do it, he mentioned the harm. He said, take little so that you can allow the woman to enjoy, to have pleasure. There is no reason why it shouldn't be there. God created us fully. Like he knows why he puts everything where he puts it in our bodies. So why do we have, as if we're using religion, why do we have the authority to remove what God has already put in place? When I do my programs on social media, I have people who are calling me non-Muslim, you're westernized, you don't know about the religion. But I do read. I have the English version of the Quran. Whatever I want to look at, I go in there and look at it. I feel that I can still be religious, be a Muslim, and still be an activist. And because I don't believe that Islam inflicts pain. In fact, when we talk about things like, again, I'm moving out, but I want to give context. When we talk about things like marital rape, Islam doesn't say when you are tired as a woman, you have to sleep with your husband. But you would hear men tell you, misogynists would say to you, I have right over your body. When I need it, you need to give it to me. No, when I'm tired, when I'm not in the mood, I don't have to sleep with you. And that is the problem. It's the misinformation and the misinterpretation of religion that is harming all of us, not just women. It's also harming men.
And it's interesting, you pointed out a lot of people who have interpreted this pieces of the Quran into hadith are men. You don't have women doing it. And, historically, women didn't have as much right to education. So it was always the men handing this down. So, it's not surprising to see this misogyny, this control over our bodies, or women's sexualities has been going on without being questioned, without being challenged for so long. While we're on the topic of religion, why do you think it's harmful to connect FGM to religion?
It's very harmful, Sahar, because it gives an impression that Islam controls women or whatever religion they associate it with. It gives a bad reputation to that religion. When you associate it with culture, it's difficult because culture is embedded, but religion is worse because of its sensitivity, because of fear associated with religion, even talking about it. It takes time to get it away to educate people when you relate it to religion. So that is the danger around relating religion to FGM.
I think the word fear plays a really big role here because I know I was born a Muslim, so I understand the way of saying or coming across as a blasphemous. And there is also a huge societal stigma when you are within these religious communities to say something against the word of Allah, whereas it's not often the case in cultures. Yes, it creates issues, but not as heavy as when it comes to religion, for example.
That's right.
In some ways, when you associate something to religion, it really allows people to follow it a lot more blindly. Are you able to tell me, is there much data available to give us an understanding of how long FGM has been around? Like, when did it start happening? Like, historically, where does it come from?
FGM was found on some ancient Egyptian mummies, but definitely the actual origin is not known. So it's a long dated practice that's been going on for centuries.
It's shocking. I shouldn't be shocked given the state of the world, but it's shocking. Like, I am lost for words. I can't even form sentences right now.
What is even more shocking is there were a lot of other practices, cultural practices, or even if we want to call it religious practices that were going on a long time ago that have now come to an end. No one is doing it anymore. For example, in the Gambian culture and other African cultures, we used to have women having, I don't know how to say it in English, but they used to take a needle and prick the chin of women to make it black, and it's to beautify them, That used to go on for a long time, but they've stopped doing it. Imagine you taking a needle and then pricking, using some products to make it dark and shape it. In those days, it's beautiful. That's what they used to do. They've stopped it. But imagine FGM been happening for centuries. And in the 21st century, we have people knowing who are told the harms. You have survivors like myself talking about the harm it's caused us. People still argue. And the most annoying thing that makes me angry is most of the times it's men who argue that this is not harmful because it's done for them. When you narrow the female genitalia, some men want that. They want a narrow vagina, for example. So they want to keep that. The idea of not being promiscuous, it serves men, not women.
Why do you think that is? There are all these harmful practices throughout the history that took place, but they stopped, right? Like the beautifying example you gave, they stopped. Why has this prevailed?
There's a lot of connection to religion that people fear. No, a lot of people don't want to against it because they fear the religion. And some people don't want to against it because they're still ignorant. Despite you talking about it, they're still ignorant. And then you have the counterparts. So the group of men, misogynists, who would never relent because for them it serves them.
Please help me get a sense of the scale of this issue, right? I find that people are aware of FGM, but you either are within communities that this is quite prevalent in, or countries, or you're not. And I think there is a big gap between the knowledge of the scale of this problem. Help me understand how big this issue is across the world.
It is a global issue. We tend to move away from naming countries per se, because then it's seen as a specific continent or a specific country. But over 200 million girls are affected by FGM across the world.
Over 200 million girls across the world now.
Yeah, right now. And again, that is old data. We haven't got the newest data yet because FGM is not researched that much. When you go onto websites like 28 Too Many, it shows you the global prevalence and the numbers and percentages. For example, in Gambia, we have 79% of girls between the age of 15 and 49 who've gone through FGM. You go to countries like Somalia, they're in their 90s. 90%, over 90% of girls have gone through FGM. Similarly, in Sudan. Having said that, there are countries that are stopping the practice. They're not stopping it per se, but banning the practice. For example, in Gambia, we've banned the practice since 2015. But just last year, our religious leaders and male members of parliament have gone back to parliament to ask for that ban to be unbanned. They don't want FGM to be criminalized because they use the religion as a reason, and then also an attack, a right to culture. They brought the cultural argument to it. And it failed because we had to fight for it. And it goes back to what I was saying. If you look at those who advocate for FGM, mainly there are women who are allies as well to these men, but it's mostly men who do argue about it. So it's very prevalent. When we talk about 70 over 90%, for example, that's a lot of women. And across in Africa, in the Middle East, in even European countries have had parts of Asia, it's a global issue.
I need to know this because if I'm sitting here this infuriated and I am removed from this, when these people went back to the Gambian parliament and tried to unban FGM, what were you feeling inside? Like, how were you feeling?
It's hard. It's what we do as activists. It's traumatizing. It re-traumatizes you because when you experience something, when you are a survivor of something, it's different, isn't it? Because I know my truth. I know what I have gone through. I know what FGM has done to me. So for someone who would never, ever experience FGM, like a male religious leader would never, ever in their life experience FGM, to tell me what my body should look like, how I should feel when I have sex, to condition me in a certain way and control me, is really deeply traumatizing. I was so angry I couldn't eat. I had to be on the phone all the time with my fellow activists on the ground to see that this doesn't go through. And we made sure it didn't go through. We did a lot of campaign online, spoken to other government institutions outside the Gambia, like the UK Parliament. We wrote to different NGOs internationally. We brought survivor stories to life, and that's the power of speaking up. We brought survivor stories. We went underground, those who were on the Gambia, to raise more awareness, to talk about the impact of FGM. These are not things that we make up. I'm not comfortable, no matter how much you pay me or anyone else. Well, this is not paid, but anyone else to pay me. There's no amount of money that can bring back my clitoris. There's no amount of money that can bring that back to me. So when people say, oh, you've been paid by the West to do this kind of work, they don't understand. FGM is a lifelong trauma. Like, you live through the pain for the rest of your life. It can be different for every woman. Each woman is different. The impact is different. But that trauma cuts across. Because imagine, Sahar, like, I am 42 years old. Well, 41. Why am I adding my age? 41 years old. And until I got to the age of 35, I always thought that I was normal. I had a normal genitalia, female genitalia. I didn't know that I needed to have an inner lips. I didn't know what that was until I was examined and told these parts were removed. This is what you're missing. This is what a normal female genitalia is. That is going to stay with me forever. I still feel inside. I'm a strong person, but I still feel psychologically, inside and emotionally, that I'm not complete because this is taken away from me. I keep imagining, how would it be like or feel like if I still have this organ in place, And it's really hard. It's really hard, even with relationships. It's really hard.
How does it make you feel that it was all done to you in the name of honor, in the name of culture, in the name of religion?
I did not have to go through this. I did not. There's no reason. We talk about reason, but I don't think there is any reason. There's no justification to it. It is abuse. It is abuse. Even the thought of me not having that alone, that is the major impact for me. Like, I tend to brush it under the. I've even thought about reconstruction, like going and having my clitoris replaced. It is hard. It is traumatizing.
Fatou, now, if you feel up to it, if you're ready, do you mind if we talk about your own experience of FGM?
Yeah.
So, what is your earliest memory of first hearing about FGM?
I became aware of it when I was back home in the Gambia, because I used to be a writer, a reporter of a newspaper. So I talk about women's rights, empowerment, gender-based violence and things like that. I ran a column called Every Woman. We had to interview a lady who was, again, a journalist, a female journalist in the Gambia, a very renowned one, who was talking about how she was trying to protect her daughter from having FGM done. That was the first time, even though I'm a survivor, I had it done. It's normal. I didn't know that it's a thing until she was talking about on radio how she would not allow her husband's side of the family to go and circumcise or mutilate her daughter. And she was so furious. And she's an activist as well, a feminist in the Gambia. So that's the first time I heard of the word. And I saw the passion in her, the drive to protect her daughter, who was very small. And she came from a community that practices FGM, who wholeheartedly believe in FGM. She was fighting against that community.
How old were you at this stage?
At this stage, I would have been around 20 years old.
You would have been to college, you would be working as a journalist in a country where, as you said, more than 70% of women are estimated to have gone through FGM. Yeah. You yourself had gone through it, which I want to talk to you about in a minute. Mm-hmm. And you had no idea what FGM is until that moment.
Yeah, until that moment. I mean, I know the practice exists because you see it as you grow up, you see, but I never know it was an issue, like it's a problem, because it's an everyday thing that happens. You hear that it's happening in this area. I mean, we all go through the celebrations in those days because there's a huge celebration that comes with it. The newly circumcised kids would have new outfits, clothes, shoes, everything, like gifts and presents. So it's something that I grow up within, and I go to those celebrations. I never knew it was an issue until I hear someone else was talking about protecting, and I was questioning, what are you actually protecting this girl from? Because I didn't know about the impact. Yes, I had painful periods, but I never associated with FGM because it's what we do.
So, okay, wow, I did not expect that in honestly a million years. You didn't realize it was an issue until you were 19, 20, but you were aware that FGM was taking place. You knew about it from, like you said, these celebrations. They would throw these big parties, buy gifts, turn it into a big thing for the kids, possibly quite exciting, something to look forward to. A birthday party comes to mind, for example.
That's right.
But tell me your first memory when you heard, I don't know, I'm assuming you must have been a young girl, when you first heard about this before you had it done. Like, what were you told about it? Who told you?
The first time I talk about what happens there was when I came to the UK and talked about my story. And even that, I was very scared to talk about it. You're not allowed to say what happens there. So you would not find a pair, like a mom or an auntie or grandma telling you, this is what happens to you, because you're not allowed. We are told when you tell that story, you will die, basically. So you never have to say. That's why we say FGM is a taboo subject. There is so much fear associated to you retelling your story. And for so long, I didn't tell my story because I was scared that I would die if I say the story. And the first time I shared the story again, I was so scared still that what if this was true? It takes time to move away from that. So I was never told what happened when you have FGM done. The only conversation I had about FGM with my mom was that one of my cousins passed away after we had FGM. So that's my mom's younger sister's daughter passed away. And I saw a picture of her and I questioned who she was. Then they said to me, she was your cousin, because I still have the picture of myself. after FGM was done, the last day of celebration. I have that picture until today in my phone. So she was in that picture. So I asked that question and they said to me that she went to FGM with you all. After that, after the celebrations and everything, she passed away. And they said it was witchcraft. They associated it with witchcraft. But later on, when I did my research and all that, I personally believe it's not proven, but I personally believe it was due to FGM because apparently she was bleeding too much after the practice was done to her. And we know that some people who have what we call homophage, they bleed excessively. When you have a cut, it's hard for the cut to stop bleeding. Some people can have that in the private area as well. So I just think, this is me speculating now, that could be the reason, because she passed away just briefly after we had the FGM done. So that was the first time I had the conversation.
Is that quite common for young girls to pass away from excessive bleeding or other complications post-FGM?
Yeah, women can die after FGM. There has been reported deaths after FGM. I haven't seen the research, but all the trainings that we've done, we have associated death with FGM. The figures we don't know because this area is, again, a new area. FGM in itself, there's not much research around it. So I haven't got that at hand. But we know that homophage is a real thing. There is data around it. We know that also there's research, especially in the Gambia, that's done by gynecologists who spoke about women who have FGM dying in childbirth is higher than women who did not have FGM done.
So, sorry, before we get into when you got it done, because I want to understand, I just feel like we have to take a step back to talk about your cousin.
Yeah.
How old was she when she passed away?
She was about 6 years old. She was around my age. I have her picture with me. But until now, no one associates it within my family, associates it with the FGM.
And she died how many days afterwards?
They said a few days after the celebration, because in those days when we had FGM, we stayed in the bush for 3 months. It's different now. This was the early 90s. So after the celebration, because she was in the pictures of the celebration, after that she passed away.
And did you guys have the same celebration or she had a separate?
We all have the same. It's a whole town or village thing. So you have like hundreds of girls going through it on the same day at a specific time. So it's a seasonal, yearly thing that goes on normally during the summer holiday periods when girls are not going to school.
It's so chilling to hear that. Like,
yeah.
I'm sorry to say this so bluntly, but any girl, including you yourself, could have been in her place.
Yeah.
Fatou, tell me about when you first learned that you were going to go through FGM. How did you find out that that was going to happen to you?
I did not know, Sahar, because I was between 5 to 6 years old. I did not know I was going through FGM. It just happens. No one tells you that you were going because I was small. No one asked for my consent. What I recalled is that I went with a group of girls, hundreds of them, in my town/village. I come from a small town. At the time, the whole town's young girls who are around about that age, between, say, for example, 3 to 10 years old, would have all gone at the same time. It's all planned by the female members of the family. Like the grandmas, the aunties, and the mothers. So I wasn't told. I didn't know. Only time I know that I had it done, or what type I had done, I knew I was cut because I didn't have the middle part there. Was when I came to the UK. Then I started working on FGM. Then I went to see a gynecologist who looked at me and said to me what had happened to me. Yeah, but I did not know. You are not told because normally some children are told that they're going to have it done, but their concept of what it is girls are told they're going for a party. I know of girls who are told they're going for a celebration and they get excited about it, but I wasn't told. I don't recall it because I was so small at the time as well.
What do you remember from that day? Do you remember going to the place, like, take me with you, like, help me understand as much as you can remember from when you were 5 or 6. If I had to recall something, I'd really struggle. But from what you remember, take me there with you, like when you close your eyes and from the moment you woke up that day until, the end of that day. Tell me what happened, everything you remember. I want to feel like I'm being taken there with you, like what you were seeing, what you were smelling, what you were hearing.
Early morning, we were a group of us, my cousin, my young aunt, the last born of my mom's family. We were all taken, and some other girls that I still remember. I remember I woke up very early. My mom woke me up very early. And the only thing I recall until now vividly is the trees. I opened my eyes and there was a lot of trees there. So we were taken to the bush. In those days, you're taken to the bush, the big bush. And I remember the old women getting a cloth and tying my eyes. And that was it. They did. I don't remember the pain now. I don't remember how painful it was, but I can still feel in my body when I want to wee, because you're asked to wee very frequently. And when I remember weeing, you squat and wee, how it stings like crazy. It stings. It's like a new wound. And yeah, I remember the pain of the wee more than even the pain of the cutting. I can't honestly remember the pain of the cutting, but I can remember how painful it was. And I don't like to wee because I didn't want to feel that pain. So I will retain my urine just so I don't go through that pain.
And there was an old lady in the bush.
There is an old lady with and my eyes were tight. But when I opened the eyes, I saw a lot of old women around me. I didn't see my mom. I saw faces that I don't know, but they were all elderly women, and a lot of other children, and crying has also stayed with me. Like the screaming of a lot of different voices stayed with me until today. And then my head was covered, because you're not allowed to see the process. My head was covered. And that is what I can remember on that day, is that a lot of trees, painful wee, and then us walking down, because we stayed in the bush the whole day from early morning, early hours until sunset. And I still remember I still hear the voices of crying children. I hear it in my head. I had to go through therapy to get that out of my head.
Where were the cries coming from?
They were having it done. So we were taken individually in turns. There's a long queue basically, and when it is your turn to go in, your eyes would be tied up, so you don't know where you are until you are removed back to the other kids. So,
and you don't see the other girls getting it done, basically.
No, my eyes were tied. I know that my hands were also held, and I know it's done so quickly because it's hundreds of girls. In those days, it's like the whole village girls in specific age bracket would have been taking at the time. So it's done so quickly. Once you're off, another one would come in quickly, and then they put some medication, herbs, not scientific medication, but herbs, and that stinks. It stinks like crazy.
Do you remember talking to any of the kids?
I now talk to my auntie about it, but not at the time. No, it's not spoken about. Once it's done, I never spoke about it. I never asked question until I was older. We're told once the procedure is done, everybody is gathered in a room, in a circle in that bush, and told that when you say this, you would die. So you can never say it to anybody else. So even as we were growing up with kids that did not have it done, we were not allowed to tell them what had happened to us.
So after that procedure, you were taken home?
No, so we stayed in the bush until sunset. Then we all go to the same big room for all the girls to stay in that place. So it's like, what would I call it? Like a school kind of thing where you're taught how you eat as a girl, how you sit as a girl, how you talk to elders, how you must not look at elders in their eyes when you speak to them. So some sort of ethics at the time. You would train within that 3 months after this process. You train all of that. And in my advocacy, I keep saying, we can still teach our girls ethics if we want to, if that's what we want, without actually taking an organ from them. We drop the blade or the knife.
Thank you so much for being with us today. If you like the program, please rate and review the podcast wherever you get your shows. And don't forget to share it with someone who might want to or need to hear it. Lastly, if you or someone you know has been affected by any of the issues we talked about today, please remember support is available. For now, we've put a few helpful resources we found in our episode description. This has been Doing Sex, a Vespucci production produced by Hattie Moyer and presented by me, Sahar.